Hello and welcome back here to the Hawks Nest with a very special crossover show here. A man that's been many times here on the Hawks Nest, a man whose work I enjoy considerably with what he does over at Bootleg Football with Brett Coleman, and they get into the depths of the teams prior to the years. They get into the depths of the draft every year. They cover things in ways others don't. His perspective is one that I always want to try to tap into and get a feel for. Welcome back on into the house, EJ here from from Bootleg Football, coming back in here. EJ, I can't speak today, but I am happy that you're back in the house.
Well, regardless of whether or not you can speak, I think, you having me on, it's probably important that I can speak, but I deeply appreciate the opportunity, Brandon. It's a lot of fun. We've done it, like you said, many times before. And it's always a good time talking about, the hometown team, the market I'm in. Feels a little bit different than all the other appearances I do.
It does indeed. And if you notice a pregnant-like glow off of EJ's face, he's a Chicago Bears fan. So
Yes.
That's just that natural, just awesome aura just coming off him for years of having to deal in the darkness, starting to now like, this is what it's like, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. As a guy that runs a Bears podcast as well called Bear Era, it is a whole lot more fun, I can tell you, as you well know, because the Seahawks have had plenty of success. Bears, not so much. So late in the season, when it's like this, in the doldrums, if your team is terrible and you're covering them week in, week out, it can be very difficult. I got to say, this is a far superior way to do it.
Yes, I do a roundtable on the NFC West, and right now I'm just waiting for the Cardinal contingent in there to start putting a noose together midstream. Like, yeah, it's a great point, guys. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but like that. Well, I know you also cover in depth, of course, as said on this, the rest of the NFL. And before we get to just a discussion quickly, folks, down in the description section below here, I've got a link directly to the Bootleg channel here. As I said, there's some great work he does, especially if you find yourself off season, in season. Always a good time to be covering these guys. Drafts coming up in a couple of months. You're going to want to be hearing their perspective. They dive as deep into the film as anybody else. So please just hit that link, direct link, sub on up to their channel, show them some love, show EJ some love for coming on in here as he's taking a time out of his day. He's running right and left. I'm telling you guys, you don't know how hard these guys got to work in season. So him taking his time out, really appreciate it here. Let's show him some love back the other way if we can. But let's kick this off, EJ. Let's kick it off. And I'd love to hear your perspective right now as a guy that's not necessarily with the dog in the fight on this team in Seattle, but with a good perspective, live in the state. Also, I know you're closely tuned to the NFL in general. What's your perspective on the Seattle Seahawks season so far?
I think it's been a tremendous success, and you alluded to it. We talk about every team in depth each summer, and when we talked about the Hawks this year, as we talk about a lot of teams, we tend to have a positive outlook as to if they are going to maximize who they are as a football team. These are the green lights they have to hit. These are the things they have to do. If we're looking back and this is a team that went deep into the playoffs or made it to the Super Bowl, what are all the things that had to go right to make that happen? And we try and outline that ahead of time each summer. And looking back at the list we had for the Hawks, there was a big list, which was why everybody was so on the fence about this team. It's not like this is one of those faded teams where everybody went, oh yeah, they're going to be good before the season. No problem. It's all going to work out. There were huge questions about the offensive line. There was a question that was sort of in domino fashion. If they don't fix the offensive line, Sam Darnold can't possibly work. He's terrible under pressure. What about the new offense? You've got to switch to OC. Like, you traded DK. What's going to happen? Again, casual fans were really worried about that. More savvy fans, maybe a little bit less worried about that. There were questions on defense. I would say less so because it was really just year 2 of Mike Mack, and we knew that was going to be better. But again, how are they going to find places for all the new fits in terms of, you talked about the draft, and John Schneider's done a tremendous job. He's on one of the, in my opinion, all-time heaters for the NFL draft over about the last 3 seasons. But there were still a lot of questions. It was still, hey, all of these things have to go right, and they have to go right together. And almost every one of them, outside of maybe right guard, has gone really, really well. And that's rare, and it's special, and it should be enjoyed. And the result on the field is semi-predictable. When you have a team where that many roles go correctly for them, you get a team like this year's Seahawks team.
As well, so, and I guess if I'm to read in a little bit on what you're saying on this, you see this as a sustainable thing and what they've done, that this has been earned. It's not on the back. I mean, it's definitely easier schedules throughout this whole division and the kind of the way the division runs ran with the combination too a little bit. And so you look at it as more as no, this was those things coming together tangibly, not a luck, not a benefit of the doubt, not just getting hot, and that with it, that there's a sustainability. This is the beginning of something here, not just a spark that then goes quiet to come back to a spark later on.
Well, you touched on a lot of NFL tropes there, and just getting hot is kind of a myth, and strength of schedule is also kind of a myth, not because it doesn't matter, but because you don't choose it, right? The NFL schedule, 87% of that is set just based on rotation, which division you're in, what rotating division you're going to play that year. Like, you don't pick. It's not like teams sit down, like do a fantasy draft with buy-in and go, I want to buy the cheap opponents for $20. Like, no, I'll buy the cheap opponents for $40. Like, that's not how it works, right? You play the schedule you get dealt. And the other thing about strength of schedule is there's one opinion about strength of schedule in August, and there's a very different one right now. Like, any game against the Chiefs in August looked like, oh man, come on, you're gonna be playing the Chiefs in December. Right now, you're playing the Patrick Mahomes-less Chiefs that have already been eliminated from the playoffs before any division winners have been crowned. What? Like, again, you can't predict that, but that's how big the swing is. So this whole they had a soft schedule. Well, they had a soft schedule when? In August? In November? In December? Now? Did they pick any of that? Not really. So in terms of the sustainability, which I think is probably the most important point for any team going forward, is do you have a foundation of talent, of contract space, of sort of what I would call sustainable design of an NFL team? And the Seahawks most certainly have that. The quarterback contract they gave Sam is what I would classify as middle of the road for a starter. It's at the upper end, and I know people just look at the dollar signs and go, that's a ton of money. Overall, in terms of quarterback contracts, especially with the ones that are going to be signed in this offseason and early next season, it's not. It's going to get progressively cheaper as they get into that deal, which is always the way. But they've got a lot of young talent. They have drafted well. They have made good free agent choices largely. This is a foundation that, can the wheels fall off? Sure, bad things can happen. We just talked about Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. Like, they regressed very hard this year. Their stats are very, very similar to last year where they were 15-2. Says a little bit about last year. They probably shouldn't have been 15-2, but they were. And this year, they shouldn't be at 500 or less, but they are. Are they a wildly different football team? If you dig into it, they're really not. They're a couple of plays away each game, and they just got the bad rolls this year. Again, they got all the good rolls last year. They got all the bad rolls this year. And the swing is tremendous because the margin for winning in the NFL is about 4 or 5 plays on any given Sunday. And I know that a lot of people will poo-poo that and say, that's not true. It is, for the most part. The talent levels are very similar. And outside of a few examples where there are blowouts, if you make 4 to 5 plays, 1 per quarter, offense and defense, like, you will win an NFL football game, and that's the margin, and that's how thin it is.
It really is. It's a league of parity more than any other sport out there, and it's by far not a little amount, by a lot amount. I wonder too, and I want to put this question away to make sure I don't let you on the fence with it, because there's a lot of ways you go, well, yeah, in general terms, okay, Hawks go out there. We're going to unpack a little bit of this Rams game in a bit here, but they go out through the end of the season. They go 3-0 to finish the season. They get the number 1 bye. In your outlook of the NFC and walking into the playoffs, you can't do they got as good a chance of. If you are running the EJ Snyder casino, and you're putting the betting odds favorites on the books at that point, you see where I'm going with this, of course.
I do.
Got to land on that.
Right near the top. If they're not a finalist at that point, I would be surprised. Again, because of the way they play football, right? The defense is incredibly sound, very aggressive, creates a lot of opportunities, and gives the opportunities back to the offense. The offense, when it's functioning at the level that they like to have it, which it has been for most of the season, to be fair. There have been some letdowns for sure. They didn't look great against the Colts, and I know that's a recency bias. That's going to be the taste in everybody's mouth. But the Colts defense played out of their mind for the first half. They really kept Indianapolis in that game. Overall, It is one of the more balanced teams in the power conference in the NFL. The NFC is clearly the power conference this year in terms of wins and losses, in terms of divisions that are stronger. The top 2 divisions in football, NFC West, and again, NFC North with the Bears, like in terms of overall win percentage. Those are the 2 strongest conference or 2 strongest divisions within the strongest conference. So even so, when you look around at other contenders in that strongest conference, the NFC, and you stack the Seahawks to them relative, I would be surprised if they play as well as they can, that they don't make the championship game, because that style of football plays well late in the season. Now, can you have an off week where the offense completely falls apart? Sure. And I know that there are a lot of questions given Darnold's history. Is he going to turn into a pumpkin in the playoffs? He's looked better even this year than he did last year in Minnesota, in my estimation, in just about every way. So is there a chance that happens? Of course. Do I think it's a likelihood? I don't. Is it possible? Yeah, it could, but I'm not waiting for it to happen. I'm not sitting here going, oh, set your clocks. Like Sam Darnold's turning into a pumpkin. And given, I want to say Mike Mack's leadership in a way, he really sets a very strong North Star course for this team. And excuses really aren't part of that program. Like, he's not telling guys, oh, well, we'll make it if this. He's like, we're going to make it one way or another. We're going to find a way to do that. And they almost did it last year. I think they're on their way to doing it this year. And I give them as good a chance as any, even though they're in the stronger of the 2 conferences.
Yeah, the Sam conversation is one that both, I think, nationally still remains alive, with old takes that are tired, like the ghost stuff, to the new takes that somehow maybe that he does going to have the brightest lights, and that's where he's now going to show you his true self, as though the mask now falls off away from him. Your perspective to that Rams game, the final game of the Vikings last year, I know you definitely got a chance to see it. The narrative out there at times on this now in retrospect seems to be from some wholly just, that's Sam, showing you it's Sam. Yeah. From my perspective, and I'm agreeing to most of everything you just said, frankly, down the line, I think you'd be in agreement to this as well, as going, there was a lot more of a complicated tale that needed to be told in regards to that Vikings-Rams game.
Yeah, I think the reason that story is the one that came out and got told is because it's the easy one, right? Yeah. It doesn't take any digging to tell that story. You go, well, he did it before, and look, he did it again. Must be the same thing. And you and I both know that's not true. The result was the same, but there's 2 things to talk about in the NFL. One is result and the other is process. The process was different. The result was the same. So people just assumed that everything was the same all the way back to the beginning. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think he has progressed, certainly in the later years, the more recent years of his career, the last 3 for sure, more and differently every year. And that's continued this year in Seattle. Again, I think he is playing better football overall than he played even in Minnesota. Again, if you're just looking at results and numbers, that's one thing, but that is, you alluded to it in the lead in, that it's just so many stories tied together, so many layers stacked on top of each other, that saying, oh, it's just Sam and he just falls apart in the playoffs is oversimplified to a point where it's just kind of water cooler talk.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I know that you're in the same camp and that you're seeing sustainability. I see this guy as the quarterback of the future. And if anything with Milroe and whatever develops in Milroe now is more of, he becomes the, rather than lotto ticket, almost as much of the stock option asset that you have for down the road to potentially move. Because the faith in Darnold's got to be true at this point, in my opinion. Because like you said, I think he should play better all the way across the board. There's so many things that you can look at, even a better tick across that board up in what he's done. Not something I put on this thing, just a real quick aside on offense. This offense is weird this year, and we keep waiting for it to get a little bit better. You know, like it's like, can it refine down? And it's not bad, but it's weird. 4 times you put up 30-point halves. It's done 6 times collectively through all the rest of the NFL season, through all the other NFL teams. If this thing doesn't kind of come, like the run game just can't quite lock it in, a lot of negative plays, stuff right through the roof. And that it is the hyper explosive nature of a passing offense on the back of low passing volume attempts, on a great defense stifling, great special teams that's stifling. Can that be a formula that wins a Super Bowl this year? Can it from a historical NFL perspective?
It's great that you bring this sort of comparison, the sort of card to hold up of history within the NFL, and is this a path to winning? I love the approach, but I also know, and every NFL team is different. It is a snapshot every year, even within the same organization. And we like to talk about things like continuity and sustainability and whatever else. But if you have been around locker rooms, and I don't care whether it's colleges or pro teams or whatever else, yes, there are traditions. Yes, there are foundations of programs and whatever else, but every single organized team is a different unit every year, and they have to win in their own way. There are very few teams that are sort of omnipresent, that can win on defense, can win on special teams, can overpower you on offense with both the pass and the run. Those are unicorns. There's very, very few of them. Teams have strengths and they have to play to their strengths, and hopefully their strengths are greater than their opponent's strengths that they line up against. That being said, what you said about matchup and whether or not the Seahawks can win with this weird offense the way they're playing right now. Against most teams, they can. A nightmare matchup for the Hawks is the Texans. If they get to the Super Bowl and they face the Texans, I would be deeply worried. Like, the Texans defense pokes holes in all the things that the Seahawks offense struggles with. And if they can shut down JSN, which they can with that secondary, and they have that pass rush against Sam where he has folded under pressure in key situations, they bring the best pressure rate in the NFL currently. They have 2 of the top 4 edges on their line, 2 out of the top 4, number 2 and number 4. Like, that's incredibly rare in terms of an assemblage of talent under a defensive leader who is every bit as current and adept as Mike Mack is and D'Amico Ryans. Like, say what you want about the Hawks defense against the Texans offense, and there's a lot to say there that's very similar, but the Hawks against that defense would be a struggle bus afternoon, I imagine.
Well, because Seattle did do pretty well with them early on in the year.
Early in the year and late in the year again. We talked about that with strength of schedule. Not the same team. If they catch them right now at the height of their defensive powers, I don't care whose offense it is, you're going to struggle against that unit right now. They are playing extremely high-level football.
You might have a 15-13 Super Bowl score or something like that in that game. If, the way that thing would roll out too.
Yeah,
you were exactly take definitely then, no matter what. You were a big, huge proponent of Mike Macdonald prior to him being hired here as a Seattle coach, a guy you really loved and you saw the vision and what he could be. And we have good coaches that come into the NFL a lot that we can recognize. Sure. Even a guy like Kevin Stefanski, I think, has been a pretty good coach. Just weird situation with Cleveland. He could go to another stop and become really good. There's a couple of these kind of guys that are good. And McDonald, I think we knew he was good. I think the part that's the door that's opening up now, I wonder about, and I'd like to know from your perspective on it, is that are we really seeing a 5-tool coach like you'd have on a baseball field?
Yeah.
A guy that this is not just, an up-and-coming riser, but no, this is a guy that is rarefied kind of air from a coaching prospect, I guess is the best way I can put it.
No, I love the question. I love the way you framed it with a 5-tool player in baseball. I think it's a really good analogy. And if I had to look at Mike Macdonald, you were talking about me being a proponent of Mike Mack. The last guy that I was a very strong proponent of in the same way was the guy we just talked about, D'Amico Ryans. Like, we were like, when D'Amico gets his chance with the way that other coaches, way that other players talk about him, when he gets the right chance, he's going to make a good choice because he's a very thoughtful guy. And he is going to put the hammer down. And he did immediately. He turned that organization around. And I felt very similar about Mike Mack, that when he picked his first spot, whenever it was, he would be very thoughtful about it and that he would make an impact. Is he a 5-tool coach? He's certainly more than a riser or an up-and-comer or a flash in the pan. I wouldn't put him on that end of the spectrum at all. Right now, I would say he's maybe a 3.5 or 4-tool coach. And while that sounds like faint praise or backhanded praise, it's not, because you and I both know that 5-tool players or coaches are extremely rare. A good 2-tool player makes a long career in the major leagues. 3 tools, you're talking about a perennial guy that's getting all-star nods. 4-tool players, you're talking about Hall of Fame level caliber players for baseball. So it's not faint praise to say he's already there in year 2 as a head coach. He is developing and learning all the things. And I don't know that people properly appreciate the level that in jump in responsibility going from coordinator level to head coach level in the NFL. There are just so many more things you're responsible for on and off the field. It is not an addition. It's not like stacking two coordinator jobs on top of each other. It is exponential. That rise is crazy, and it gets the best of a lot of very good coaches. Look at Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio's, had his shot a couple of times, and I don't think he's a great head coach. He is one of the all-time best. In fact, I would argue a Hall of Fame worthy defensive coordinator, and I don't really think that's arguable.
No.
Is he a great head coach? I don't believe he is. Does that mean he's a bad football coach? No, I just said he's a Hall of Fame coach as a defensive coordinator. Like, he's a great coach. Not everybody can handle the top spot, and Mike is learning his way through. And I think very effectively. I don't think he's taken a ton of missteps, and he is being good and better even than he was in his first year. We're still seeing that progress. So could he be eventually a 5-tool head coach? I think he can. I think he can grow into that. Is he there right now? That might be a bridge too far, but so far the arrow's pointing up, and that is a good thing because he wasn't starting from the bottom.
No, he wasn't. And we're definitely feeling his development come along. And he's just, there's so many right decisions made. Getting off of Grubb, getting over to Kubiak, this type of thing. And got to give these guys time to grow too. Sometimes I'm trying to caution Hawk fans with Kubiak. It's like, look, it's only really his 4th year as an OC too. I know he's all up for head coaching jobs and all, but you got to give the guy time as a young guy to still, figure out the lay of the land on how to do this. And to your point on that's the thing that Macdonald lamented when he first came in here. Was like, man, it's kind of drawing me away from the X's and O's as much now.
Yeah.
I don't get to get in there and do all my fancy stuff now. I'm kind of being pulled from that.
You can relate to this, right? We can both relate to this. Hey, you finally got a job podcasting. You're just going to be able to sit down and research. You're going to be in hog heaven. And you're like, yeah, that would be great. Oh, I get to do it less because this is my job now. Yeah. And that's the real answer. And something I want to touch on, you talked about right decisions and speed of decisions. And I was thinking about this last week. I don't think I've mentioned this on a podcast yet. I go back to the decision for inside linebacker last year. And I think that was a kind of low-key watershed moment for Mike Mack and the Seahawks, right? You get 5-6 weeks into last season and you go, I can't do what I need to do. Like, I have properly assessed these guys. I had my off season. I'm getting up to speed on all the head coach stuff as well. But like, I'm out. I'm playing defense. It's not going the way I want to. And I, Mike Mack, identify the reason is I'm not getting what I need out of my middle linebackers. And I go to John Schneider. Now, again, I don't have any inside information. I go to John Schneider. I sit down and I go, John, if we're going to make this work, you got to find me an inside linebacker. And here's my list. Here's 5 guys. Go get one of them, because I can't do it with what we've got. And he did that in season, in the middle of his first season as a head coach. Now, that was pretty quick. The trigger came well before the trade deadline, right? It's halfway through. And he was like, this isn't working. Like, we got to make a move. They go and they get Ernest Jones, and immediately, like, the light comes on for that defense. All the things you weren't seeing fall into place within like 2 weeks. It was damn near instant. And that was, I don't think a lot of people like paid attention to that. A lot of people went, oh yeah, he's a better fit. Makes sense. The sort of depth of that and the weight of that as a rookie head coach to be able to make it that quickly and that decisively and go, no, we are moving off this, and here's why, and be able to make it happen. Credit to John Schneider for making that occur. But I am pretty sure that that wasn't John's idea. That was Mike's idea. And it was a big, big deal. And the Hawks defense has been on a completely different trajectory since that moment, since that acquisition of Ernest Jones.
Flipped in Tyrese as well. Did a double deuce on that, where you flipped out them both once you made that trade as well. And he embraced it right from the jump, and it brought the immediate returns with those guys coming into play. A little bit of a kind of sidewind, couple of questions. We go around the horn here with you. I want to cover so many different bases. As you watch the NFL as a whole this year, and we've seen the change of cover 2 to now a little bit more of the 12 personnel, 13 personnel coming in fold now. Has there been any evolutions that you've seen from the sport this year that's been a little bit of unique to 2025?
It's a great question. I love it, because watching, as somebody that gets to watch and analyze the entire league, it is cool to look at the macro trends and see people bring something, I don't want to say new in because there's nothing new under the sun in football, but a new wrinkle on something in, and then see it work, and then see immediately coaches around the league on that side of the ball take it in, iterate, use it, pull it apart. Coaches on the other side of the ball come up with something to stop it or counter it. It's one of the most fascinating sort of chess games throughout this game that we really love. I think you're seeing for years, you saw offenses dictate, and they did that, like you said, through personnel, through groupings, through formation. They were really trying to manipulate what the defense was doing and make the defense be reactive. And that's been the macro trend for quite a while now, last 4 or 5 years. Some of that is rules based. Obviously, we've seen it with the coaching tree. You talked about it. The folks that have gotten, hot coaching opportunities have been offensive guys, because the league is offensively based. And if you're not successful offensively, you're not really going anywhere for the most part. So again, we can see it even in, you saw it in Seattle when Mike Mack was hired. First question was the first question when Mike Mack was hired: who's coaching the offense? Like, what are you going to do on offense? Right. It's the same thing anytime a defensive head coach is hired. This year, I think the macro trend that's been really interesting is watching defenses. And it started, none of these things are exact start and stop on the season break, but it started last year a little bit of the defensive manipulation of offenses. Oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to see how you react, not the other way around. We're not going to see what you're putting out there, and then we're going to put our guys out. Or we're going to put this package out there, and it doesn't look quite like you think it should, and we're going to see what you do about it, and then we're going to have our reactions lined up. So defense kind of grabbing those reins back and dictating a little bit more, both through all the same mechanisms, right? Through personnel usage, through formation, through size, through versatility is really the sort of key word on defense, right? And you look at a guy like, Kyle Hamilton and his spiritual successor only a couple of years later, and Nick Emmanwori, of like, I can bring this guy out. He can do everything from slot corner to linebacker to free safety to strong safety, if those terms still existed. Honestly, we could play him at outside corner if we really want to. That is a queen on the chessboard. That piece can go in any direction and make impact in any particular way. And where you put that guy and how you line him up and the other people you put him out on the field with can be a real difference maker. And we've seen Seattle use it that way. And Seattle's not the only team doing that, with very versatile hybrid defenders at kind of all levels. And that's always been a thing, but the way it was even referred to, the way language runs around the NFL and people talk about it, like, oh, he's a unicorn. I don't know. He's a multi-role player. What are you going to do with him? It was always seen as more of like a burden to try and figure that out. And now coaches are collecting those guys and going, I mean, you look at Seattle, they got Devin Witherspoon and Nick Emmanwori on the same defense. Well, what position do those guys play? My question is, what down is it? What do they want to influence the offense to do? That's the answer. And that's a good thing now. That's not I can't pigeonhole him in a very traditional NFL that likes to put everything in a box. It's, you can't pigeonhole him. And that's why we love that guy, is because he can do a bunch of different things from a bunch of different alignments for us. And that gives us, the defense, the advantage. We're going to take the scepter back. We're going to sort of lead from the front. And you've seen teams like Houston, like Seattle, really start to dictate with defense in a way that hasn't been possible over the last 3 or 4 years, or at least teams for the most part haven't been successful with dominant defenses. And now they're so good, especially Houston. They said it the other night on a primetime game. You really kind of have to take defensive first teams more seriously than you have in the last 2 or 3 years, because of the level they're playing at.
As long as they built that personnel to, like you say, accommodate to hold into nickel, where I think, to your point now, those defenses that have maybe been a little late on getting around to their defense and as far as getting the personnel right, are a little bit more of those teams rolling back to base now. Let's, for instance, say to the counter on the 12 personnel, whereas a team like Seattle can go live in nickel 24/7 in those situations and it'd be no problem. And it's like, it's almost like a metric, right? Oh, that team's living in bay at 3-4. They're like, I'm seeing more 3-4 looks at times from teams on, especially the bad defenses, quite frankly, in that way, going up to try to balance back up against this 12 personnel, 13 personnel looks that are out there all over the place.
Again, you got to play to your roster and you got to play to your strengths. I said it earlier. Teams can't do whatever they want to do. They're not formless amoebas. They can just shift to whatever the sort of NFL macro is at the moment. You've got to look at your own roster, and that's sometimes shaped by injuries. Sometimes it's shaped by draft decisions or the combination of the two. And look, if your best 11 is 4 linebackers because that's the way your team's invested, cool. If you want to play dime all the time and you only have 3 good corners, don't play dime all the time. It's bad. It's like teams that really want to play man and don't have man corners. They just get crushed. And it's like, what are you doing? And it's like you see it all the time. A stubborn coordinator be like, but I play man, or I play this, defense in 3rd and long, and I'm not doing anything else. It's always work. You don't have the personnel to run it. Don't run it. So a lot of defensive thinkers are looking and going, well, look, it's not traditional, but hey, 6 defensive linemen is probably our best look. How do we make that work from a defensive perspective? Well, hopefully you got a couple of hybrid guys on the edge you can drop in coverage, or you're going to be short there. But, they're lining up with, like, you see it all the time now, defensive looks where, 8 or 9 of the players are within like 2 yards of the line of scrimmage before the snap. Now, a bunch of them are dropping, but you don't know which ones from an offensive perspective. And that's the defense, again, putting those guys up in a line and saying, we're going to make you flinch. And that's going to give us the half a step instead of you having it.
Yeah, the stack box rates have been incredible, and especially for the teams going, well, boy, there are tight splits offensively that we've been wanting to run throughout this year, watching the one size fits all measure in these defensive playbooks that they just seem to all, it's like they have a chapter they go to where it's like tight offensive splits. And it's like stack the box and blitz the hell out of them. It just seems to be like, I was watching opponent after opponent. I'm just like, and this is purpose, why are they doubling JSN? It's like, well, because they're stacking the box and blitzing us 24/7. They don't got the back end support to roll the double team back to JSN's way. And they're starting to change a little bit now, defenses against us with that. But it was kind of, to your point, and that a wild to watch how much of that was going on as again, most defenses they'll try different stuff. And I was just seeing it like, yeah, that's what you do. That's just kind of what you do, where there wasn't a lot of thought from some of these coordinators early on in the year and how they were attacking our offense because of it, strangely enough. Wanted to ask you about quarterbacks, because I have a working theory that I'm developing right now where the pull for 10 years has always been spread concepts are proliferating. The NFL offense is ahead of the defense. What we want to do is get the quarterback on the rookie contract, maximize the rookie contract, hybridize the offense to build in concepts, a la like Griffith with Baylor going to Washington back. They started this, did Shanahan with Washington, really, in my opinion. And then that you can get him playing immediately great or immediately functionally good enough to go win a Super Bowl and have the rest of the roster built up around him. Let me put it that way. It seems like it's moving now into we're moving back more what I call traditional, where there's more on the quarterback's going to have to now be a little bit more developed. He's now going to have to footwork from under center. He's going to have that ball action on play, on the play action stuff. He's going to have to be able to go through reads, pre-snap, determine certain stuff. I think the game is starting to drive back in this direction, but I want to know what you think on that, or if it's this is just a blip and we're going to get back to the, get them instant playing kind of style of things.
Well, they're all blips. It's how long they last. Like the NFL is nothing if not a pendulum, right? And this is the pendulum swing back towards that, but it's a great segue. I love that. Kudos. Because of what we just talked about, right? Because the defenses are making it so complex. So we talk about this all the time on our podcast, that it's 2 different sports, college football and the NFL. They look like the same sport. They are functionally 2 different sports. And if you train somebody to be a good college quarterback, which you have to do to get them through college, and then you drop them in the NFL pond, it is a whole different level. And it's like when you skip any level. It's like when you go from high school to college and you're like, I got it. I had the whole high school thing. And then you get that first semester of college homework and you're like, oh, wait, this is not a little bit more complex. This is a lot more complex. I've got work to do. And this is the defenses making those young passers' life hell, right? You're seeing 8, 9 guys on the line dropping into a NTT, a non-traditional Tampa, where you're looking at Tampa 2 invert, or you're looking at taking a guy from the defensive line spot and dropping him into the pole runner in certain situations because he's Micah Parsons and he's faster than your wide receiver. Just all kinds of bananas, bizarre stuff that you just don't see in college. It doesn't happen. And it's all about making you hesitate, because if we make you hesitate for the first second and a half, you're not going to be effective in the second second that you get, that second full one, and that takes you to 2.5 seconds. And that's the average time to pressure in the NFL. So if we can dislodge one of those 2 seconds for you where you're not effective and you start to duck or see color or pull the ball down and think you have to move or whatever else, we've essentially killed the play with pressure. Like the result, we'll see again. But again, process, results. The process is if we can steal that second from you, if we can make you even better, turn around from a play action fake where you've already taken 3/4 of a second from yourself. Now you have to get that snapshot instantly. And it looks completely different than the last time you saw it when you took the snap. We've essentially put you in a box as a young passer that you can't get out of. And we've seen that. Like JJ McCarthy is a perfect example this year. The game was clearly too fast for him in the first half. It's starting to slow down a little bit, but defensive coordinators aren't going to pull up on a guy like that and go, hey, well, you're a rookie. We're going to play base looks. Like, no, they're going the opposite way. Yeah, they're throwing the hammer down on like, we're going to do the wildest rotations you've ever thought of this week because he's going to look up and go, what the hell is this? And that's the whole point. It is defenses making those guys' life harder. So you are seeing transitions that are occurring like the one in Chicago where Caleb Williams was not an under center play action guy. He had very low rates of that. High school, college, he just never did it, right? He was not asked to do it. His game was completely different. Ben Johnson said, no, this is the key. You look at the top guys in the NFL right now. You look at Goff, where obviously Ben just came from. You look at Matt Stafford. You look at the guys that can manage that under center play action game, which is difficult on many frames. I just talked about it. You have to turn your back to this rapidly changing defense and make an assessment very, very quickly. When you turn around, you have to be accurate. You've got to be correct, right? You can't make the wrong read. You can't make the wrong throw. And it all has to happen in the blink of an eye. And if you're not used to that, it's a lot. And you saw it be a lot for Caleb Williams in the beginning of this year. Ben was resolute. He said, the results are going to, the juice is going to be worth the squeeze. We're going to get through this process. It's not going to be awesome in the beginning. He is doing the right things. He's making progress at the right times. And we're going to have to see more coaches who are willing to do that. The get rich quick coaches who want the passer to come out of college, be fully formed and be able to drop into high level, fully concepted kind of NFL offenses against all these werewolf defenses. I mean, how's it feel to want? It's cool, but it's not going to work out.
It feels like a blip that's going to be for a little bit of time too. I like to say pendulum swings, but it feels like we're in the beginning of the pendulum swinging to this side where it currently is at. And at least for the next 5 years to me. So the team that can smartly plan for that, it's going to take time. If you can find a quarterback like we have with, here with Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and what he's done, Mac Jones, and coming out there at times and outperforming Brock Purdy when he's come out there, I think it shows you that there is a lay of a land of guys that get tossed away from these teams because they haven't kind of updated their thinking for where offenses are at versus going up against these hard defenses that you just spoke upon.
Yeah, and if you can't do it, that's the other line. There was always a way to kind of fudge it, quite frankly, for quarterbacks that were incredibly athletic, but couldn't do that. There's a whole section. You talked about that page in the playbook. There's a whole boot rollout game for those guys. It's like, okay, you're going to give a sort of soft play action fake, and then you're going to turn around. There's not going to be anybody there. Well, defenses are anticipating that now, even between the first half of the season and the second half of the season. If you watch the first 6 weeks of the NFL season, that play was open over and over again for everybody. Every offense that ran that. It was like free time. And then some DC was like, I don't care. Play it as if he's going to roll out. And then he turned around. There's a guy 2 yards away from him at full speed. And those plays started to wither, or you had to be more creative in the way that you got into them. But the NFL was doing it in very sort of vanilla ways because it was free money, right? You were just playing with house money. And that stopped about week 6 or week 7. All of a sudden, you started to see that free defender take that outside path and be like, no, I'm going to play outside in. I'm going to wait for that quarterback to spin out. And if he doesn't, then I'll flatten and chase the play. Look, I'm probably not making the play from the backside anyways. If it is a true run to that side, if he does hand it off, like I'm not out of position unless there's some crazy all the way across the line cutback. So the risk is very low, but the reward is he doesn't get a free 2 seconds and a full, third of the field to just roam free and pick a target while our defense breaks down in the back end.
It's a great point on your part. This is what we did the Rams offense in the first matchup. And yeah, I loved it that we did it because the Rams run play action at the highest rate in the NFL percentage wise. So you, like you say, there's always the unblocked defender usually on those plays. You got to hold your water because you're already running the light box like Seattle's was the 6-man box. And now you're going to run that defender to the quarterback and you're going to go 5 to maybe their potential 7, maybe 8 if they're in 12 personnel. They got to hold up the line on that. But I love doing it because you just then say, no, we're taking this thing that you've made the highest propensity in the sport out of your playbook. So we're going to force you to play uncomfortably from what you've wanted to do this year. You got the means to do it in Stafford and company. They can still beat you in other ways. But I love the thought process of doing it that way as an adjustment. And like you say, these defenses are getting smarter and quicker and faster than they used to take a long time to figure stuff out. And now it just feels like it's half a season and they're flipping on the dime, in that regard. Real quick, just want to give a shout out if I can here to the sponsor of the show, EJ. See if you like some of my picks here today. And the sponsor of this show is going to be Sleeper. Sleeper is the #1 fantasy app rolling in the game right now. My favorite Sleeper fantasy sports app. As I said, I can't talk today, but if you use my code today, NEST, they will match you up to 100% up to your first deposit up to $100. So $100 from me to you through the channel. And but wait, there's more because just a free create a login entry and they'll put a $20 into your account as well. So $120 from me to you through the Sleeper app. Terms and conditions do apply. Please see their site for details. As you can see, the picks I got up right here. EJ, you liking these picks? 1.5 over on Myers on the field goal. Sheed over 34.5 yards. Charbonnet with a bunch of A and B gap runs. Kyron Williams with a bunch of A and B gap runs. And then Puka Nacua gets 75 targets every day.
Never going to bet against Puka targets. I like the Kyron Williams call out as well. And then the Myers call out is one of my favorites. I did put out a tweet this week that said, this is one of the most important and impactful players in the NFL that gets talked about, not the least, but none. I think if you asked 80% of fans, just around the NFL, who's the Seahawks kicker and is he any good? I feel like the hit rate on that would be 15% tops. Nobody says his name and he is so good. He's the reason they won. I mean, many games, but especially the Colts game. If you have a kicker that misses 1 or 2 of those kicks, it changes the game script, right? It changes the end of game script. It puts you in a position where you're not going to win it with a Myers field goal. You're going to have to get a Darnold touchdown, which is a very different deal, especially on a day like that where it's not working out for you. So tremendous player in Myers and just wildly, I would say, under-respected. I think kickers in general are, but Myers especially for how good and just kind of how quietly he goes about his business.
He really is. And on pace, it looks like to maybe break the most made field goals in a season right now on the outside looking on in there. The Comic Binge, thank you for the $2 donation, says EJ is one of the GOATs of football YouTube. I would agree with that. And again, please do, folks, if you get a chance, click the link down below, description section, link directly to Bootleg Football here. That's where EJ cuts up shop over there, as well does the Bear podcast on.
It's on YouTube.
Bear Podcast on YouTube. Either way, but click that link, get on there for it. EJ is so kind to come on in here, and him and Brett, of course, doing great work over there with draft coverage and your guys' preview system. I usually am not interested all the time in getting the previews of these teams, but it's much watch TV, much watch white YouTube TV, watching your guys' individual previews of these teams. Every single one is the depths they go in, the formations, the usage of packages, not just the players. They got this guy and then they got that guy. They get into really high quality stuff over there. You do want to follow them. And I agree with him on that. Feed Me with a $5 donation says, Nick Emmanwori is such a monster dude. Kyle 3.0. Never seen Kyle rush the passer like Nick Emmanwori can. Dude is the real deal, EJ. The GOAT is back. You getting some GOAT statuses here, EJ?
Right? I don't know about GOAT because that's all time, but is he... I said spiritual successor. I actually think he's the NFL successor. He's the next iteration. And, you just got a donation from Comics Binge. So we'll go back to a Marvel thing. The movie Ultron, right? Age of Ultron, right? Each successive iteration is bigger and stronger and smarter and faster. And if you're looking at that hybrid safety position, Emmanwori does do more than Hamilton, which is bananas because Hamilton is a very good, extremely high level NFL player and took him a couple of years to develop. And again, Emmanwori took 5 games and he can do more. He is definitely more effective as a rusher than Hamilton. And that's just kind of that Ultron model of came on quicker. He's bigger. He's faster. He learns faster. Like it's just one of those sort of AI out of control models of like build a player. What happens if you just leave the computer alone overnight? They pop out Nick Emmanwori and go, here, do whatever you want with him.
It's been wild to watch. And the thing with it too is Hamilton's tape was it was just so much better at Notre Dame than what you necessarily had from Emmanwori. He had good tape in Carolina. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like kind of even what we've gotten to see. They used him in a different function, obviously more at safety than where we put him in the slot, but it's been as well, just harder to project that versus Hamilton. You just knew the 40 was going to ding him big. Outside of the 40 time, everything else was so true and right about him, what you saw on tape. But this guy has surpassed. I mean, he is, all the things you just said are absolutely true. It's just, he seems beyond him. And I'll tell you what, you saw him in training camp. This guy tore apart the Seahawks training camp. I mean, when he was making an interception like every day and a legitimate one, jumping a route, running a 9 route down the field with a receiver and then jumping in at the end of it. I mean, what's to come on deck with this kid, EJ, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, there's a lot of room there. And that's the crazy thing is he's already playing at that level. You're already talking about an elite athlete. I was at the combine. I post up next to the vertical jump station because I think it's fascinating. It's a good measure of explosion, but it's also just crazy to see some of these guys, especially like defensive tackles who weigh like 330 and they jump like 36 inches, right? Just straight 3 feet up in the air and you weigh 330. That's just a crazy, impressive athletic feat. But even Emmanwori gets up there. They have to jack the thing all the way up. Like there's the extendo arm on the top and they're like, oh no, we know who this is. And they're like, how far does this thing go? Do we have an extension? Like it's got to go all the way up. And then he stands up there. He's a very tall guy, obviously, but he's also not slight. He's 220 plus pounds. He's the size of an NFL linebacker these days, obviously runs under 4.4 and he stands up and he just jumps. And I've been to a lot of NBA games. I've seen a lot of guys that have a lot of hang time. He just kept going up. Like he's a 220-pound guy and he just kept going up. And I was like, I was standing there with my mouth open, just like, what is this? Like I knew he was going to jump. I was talking to Jordan Reed, who's a friend of mine, does great draft work over at ESPN. If you don't follow Jordan, absolutely hop over and follow him. One of the best people in the game. But we had talked, we always talk a little bit before we go to the combine, like, okay, who are your guys? Who are the 5 guys you're looking for? And what drill do you want to see? Right. And he was like, yeah, you're going to be, he was right on the rail, right behind the vertical jump. And I was on the field looking up at him. I caught his notebook there. And I saw Nick sort of sidle up there. I looked at him. He's like, this is the one. And sure enough, he didn't disappoint. He is an astounding athlete in person, like just NFL football player or not. That guy is one of one as an athlete.
And the combination of him and Witherspoon for years to come, say nothing if they actually get another lockdown guy out the other side on that third, then you're running nickel 24/7, those 3 guys out there, what could be for what you can do with this defense in the future. Cause those 2 guys are just cut from kind of the same cloth in a lot of ways at times, but just a great pairing between the 2, especially moving Witherspoon back to outside corner. Seems like his more natural home. A couple of quick questions here as we kind of wrap this up with you, and we don't have to go too expansively here on this because I know we're getting tight on the time on this. Anything early standing out to you with the NFL draft right now from just things you're seeing in general terms? You don't have to get to specificity, but just kind of just some general things about the draft.
Yeah, there's already some sort of early storylines developing, if you want to call them that. Pass rusher is going to be extremely deep. Edge in specific, we could be looking at a historic number of edges. Again, it's a long process, but again, early look, talking about maybe 15 of the top, depending on who you talk to, 45 to 60 picks are going to be edge players. Like it's that kind of depth and skill in that class. So if you're in need of pass rush help, this is a good year to have high picks and use them. Quarterback is always a question in the NFL draft. One of the headline makers for the entire process. Going to make a bit of a different headline this year. It is looking extremely thin at quarterback. There is a non-zero possibility that there is one high-level player, the guy that just won the Heisman, Fernando Mendoza, at quarterback, and then a bunch of other guys who are out of eligibility. Like if you are looking for a potential starter, you might be looking at one of one. And that is very uncommon in the NFL draft. There's usually at least 2, possibly 3, couple of years ago, we had 5, 6 guys going in the first round, all thought of, all guys that are currently starting in the NFL. This is not that year. It is going to be extremely thin. That is going to cause a lot of pressure on the NFL free agency carousel, the trade carousel, because teams are going to need starters. There are always multiple teams that need starters. What they're going to do or not do, you're going to see guys with teams with borderline guys at starter not make a call this year and just kind of push it forward because it's better than any available option, right? This is not the year to take a wild swing at quarterback, because if you don't have the top spot or you're not willing to trade for it, you're not getting a guy that's thought of as potentially a starter even early in his career.
So what I'm hearing is that Jalen Milroe is worth a second round pick in a trade.
Depending on the eye of the beholder, we'll see. But if there was ever a year, if he had a really great preseason and he had come in relief and played really well for a game or two, John Snyder would be licking his chops to take advantage of some other GM right now.
Oh, you better believe it. Last 2 questions here. We might be moving on from our running back position this offseason. Walker's going to be a free agent. There's a mixed bag thing on this. Some of this to me comes back to the offensive line just doesn't run block well enough at times. But if we've got to move on to a new running back, you're a running back guy. I know it's just kind of your thing, your position you tend to like as much as looking at. Is there a running back so far in this early draft that you think would be a great ideal fit for the Hawks in this same scheme, provided we run the same scheme, whose name is not Jeremiah Love?
Yeah, Jeremiah Love would be at the top of most lists for running backs this year, and rightfully so. Great player. But there are lots of other players. This is not a thin running back class. You're absolutely correct. I love to plumb the depths of the running back class every year. It's a position I'm fascinated by. And there's lots of guys to choose from this year. I'm going to go with one homer option, Jonah Coleman, the Husky, because I love his fit. Is he the same as Kenneth Walker? He's not, but I think he is a very effective back, and I think he's going to be good. And the other one, which is the non-homer pick, is Jeremiah Love's running mate at Notre Dame, who is also worthy, Jadarian Price.
He's fun.
He's a lot of fun as well. So they're different flavors. They are not the same player. They would not fill particularly the same role. Either could be a very effective piece. And Seattle has shown, Kingsbury's shown that he really likes the by committee approach, sort of regardless. It's not find the guy with a hot hand and then stick with him. He's going to give carries to multiple running backs. So, Charbonnet is still going to get his, even if K-Walk moves on. And then you need another, right? And you would honestly want somebody with a slightly different style, which would make me lean away from Coleman a little bit because he's a little more similar running style, and get somebody who's got a little bit more burst, which is certainly what K-Walk is known for when he's healthy. And there are a bunch of guys in this draft that had that designation. So something to keep an eye on for sure, because I think I don't want to say a foregone conclusion, but I think it's a very popular opinion that Kenneth Walker may move on this season.
I think the team's going to look at some of the analytic stuff with him and some of the poor run blocking and the poor schemes and a lot of his time here absent this year, and that they're going to end up giving a contract people aren't expecting because they're going to try to be doing some advanced look at this one a little bit with Kenneth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just my gut instinct to get too pricey for us. Do you like David Montgomery, my comp for Jonah?
Yes. I think Montgomery was a better version and might still be, but yes, in terms of play style comp, love it. Love it.
Yeah. Feels like I agree with you. A little bit better Montgomery over top side. I think a little more speed potentially, but just, they seem to run built the same way too. They got that unusual build. Last question. Am I going to get to the end of this offseason as things fit to form and Clint Kubiak is going to become a head coach? You're kind of tapped in on some things here. I know you hear some rumors and whispers and things. What are you hearing? What are the whispers? What's the wind blowing?
Yeah, whispers and rumors are just that. They're whispers and rumors. Some of them come true, some of them don't. Is he in the conversation for guys that will be included in the loop? Yes, he will be asked. And I do think he'll go on some visits, right? I think he'll do some interviews. I would be actually really surprised if he didn't do some interviews. But you have to look at the last several coaching cycles to kind of read the tea leaves or see which way the wind's blowing. And there have been other guys, most notably Ben Johnson, right? He went on a couple of coaching junkets before he took the Bears job. First one was very small. It was just 1 or 2 interviews. Year before last was extensive. He made the full rounds. Everybody, including me, was sure he was going to leave, and he went back. And we've seen guys do that more often. And if I had to lay folding money on it right now, I think that's probably the path we're talking about here. He will take some visits. He is going to get interest. I doubt anybody blows him away. And unless he is like 100% sold on the fit, and that would mean that he either got to pick his quarterback or had a quarterback that he absolutely loved to death, I think he'll come back because it's potentially the best thing for him professionally is to come back, get another year in this offense. Again, year two, everybody's going to be more familiar. Not really going to lose a ton of weapons, might add some like we were just talking about. And then he goes out in the coaching market and can basically write his own check next year.
Yeah, great points there all around on your part. And I think that would be what's best for him. I just wonder if there's going to be too many darn jobs out there available where it's just there's too many chairs and not enough OCs, or too many chairs and not enough head coaching candidates of high quality. And that ends up becoming the mitigating factor. Last out on here, give me 2 Super Bowl teams here from the AFC and the NFC, and then we will wish you a good busy day here that we start off on.
Yeah. Boy, there's heart and head, right? If you're just looking at all the analytics numbers, which we do, but then there's also looking at tape and going, what would be a really fun matchup? On the AFC side, I can certainly see Houston putting a stranglehold on that conference and getting to the title game on the strength of their defense. Do I want to see that? I really want to see Josh and this Bills team get there. They are one of the more flawed teams in the final, but we saw it again versus New England. When they sort of lock down and lock in, it is a very dangerous team. Now, the defense doesn't always show up. It's a very different team than Seattle that way. But I'll say Bills on the AFC side because, look, all the storylines. Josh Allen, MVP in the Super Bowl. And if he goes off, he could win one. And that would pretty much cement his legacy, not only in Buffalo, but also within the NFL and put him on a Hall of Fame track if he wasn't already there, which he is. So AFC Bills, NFC, man, a lot of teams with a good shot, but matchup wise, break your heart and say the Rams. Stafford one last ride.
They're good.
Stafford one last ride. I could see him walking away after that, get a ring and say, I'm not going to deal with the hyperbaric chamber anymore. I'm just going to go live my life. He's playing at such a high level right now. I think that would be a fascinating game, both schematically and just from an athlete perspective. Tons of great players on both sides of that one. So I'm going to go Buffalo versus the Rams.
I think it's a fair outlook, and then it's going to be brutal. They get the Super Bowl, and then they go make 2 first-round picks for Burrow after Stafford retires, and the hits just to keep on coming, EJ.
Oh, God, that would be
keep on coming.
That would be so terrifying for the NFC.
Oh, gosh, I lost my stuff last year on that Falcon trade, man. I was so mad. And everyone's like, the Falcons are going to be good. What are you talking about? I'm like, no, they're not. No,
not that good.
Goddamn pick. Folks, do me this favor. If you can, again, just hit that link. Sub on up over there to Bootleg Football, and EJ does great work. EJ, we're gonna have you back about Super Bowl week, bye week, and Super Bowl week when we're about to go play in the Super Bowl. So have you,
absolutely,
that Seahawks Super Bowl matchup as that does come on. But definitely have you back, if not that, before this off season, and talk up some more of this draft and a little bit more of what we're seeing from this NFL in general. But please do, folks, sub up on over there to DJ as he's running right and left. He's got to go do another show right now. I really appreciate you taking the time, as you've got a unique perspective and you're as tapped into this as anybody out there, my man.
Well, I deeply appreciate the spot. It's always fun to talk about the Hawks. You make it very easy to do that. So thanks for making me the spot and having me on.
Love it every time. And I'd love to have you on again really, really soon. So thank you guys for watching today. Hit that like button, maybe sub on up if you get a chance. Use that sleeper code NEST if you get a chance with their app as well. Thank you to them for sponsoring the show. But until next time, please don't you ever forget, go Hawks.